Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Welcome back to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm your host, Rob Dew. Coming up, we're going to have a little debate and demonstration on drones, private versus government. And we're going to have a representative from SB 277 recalls to talk about some real solutions to get rid of this draconian forced vaccination bill. But first, we're going to talk about the rash of fires in the south of predominantly black churches. Is it all racially motivated? Is it all white people out there trying to get their digs in on black people after this horrible shooting that happened in South Carolina? Well, let's look at the first story here from NBC News. South Carolina black church, once torched by KKK, burns again. Fire officials in South Carolina were digging Wednesday through scorched wreckage of a historic black church gutted overnight under unknown circumstances. At a news conference Wednesday, investigators said they were still determining what caused the fire at Mount Zion African Methodist Episcopal Church.
Hard to say who might have come through here or what the cause of this was, but we had problems here before, so it really didn't go away. It's still here.
The blaze at Mount Zion comes amid a rash of fires that have erupted at black churches all across the South in the past 2 weeks. Officials say at least 2 fires have already been declared arson. All of these recent fires have occurred in the weeks following the shooting at Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston on June 17th. A white gunman opened fire on a Bible study.
And it wasn't just the Today Show that was insinuating that it was white people that burnt down this church. Once again, Twitter warriors were out in full effect. Here's an article from Steve Watson. Twitter warriors falsely report spate of black burning churches. Several are not cases of arson. One church isn't even black. In the wake of the Charleston shooting, so-called social justice warriors have played a huge role in promoting a contrived race war because, it's good and progressive to have everyone feeling divided and angry. The warriors have done what they do best in creating a hashtag #WhoIsBurningBlackChurches with the clear insinuation that racist white supremacists are behind all the fires. In fact, here is a tweet from one Charles Wade. Stop the passive language. Fires aren't breaking out at black churches. Black churches are being set on fire. But set on fire by whom? That's always the question. And especially when we don't have investigations even being conducted or completed at this point, you have people jumping to conclusions. Also today, National Review, church burnings, falsified history repeats itself. And Michelle Malkin goes in to talk about how in 1990s there was a USA Today reporter, Gary Fields, who said there were 61 different church fires that looked suspicious. And they did a study of that, an analysis, and it showed that only 4 could be conclusively racially motivated. And it also talks about how teacher alumnus agitator DeRay McKesson is now running around Twitter saying that the KKK is responsible for the half a dozen current church burnings, even though one of them was most likely accidental and had no criminal element or intent. One was touched off by an electrical short after a tree limb fell on the property, yanking the electrical service line. And one was involved, it was actually a white church, and it was struck by lightning. And we're going to have more coming up talking about lightning. I'm going to be joined by Joe Biggs and Leanne McAdoo. But I want to go back to a older article. This is from Third World Traveler, and it's COINTELPRO, The Untold American Story. And this is the section on the Ku Klux Klan. It reads, during the 1960s, the FBI's role was not to protect civil rights workers, but rather through the use of informants, the Bureau actively assisted the Ku Klux Klan and their campaign of racist murder and terror. Church committee hearings and internal FBI documents revealed that more than 1/4 of all active Klan members during the period were FBI agents or informants. 44, however, Bureau intelligence assets were neither neutral observers nor objective investigators, but active participants in beatings, bombings, and murders that claimed the lives of some 50 civil rights activists by 1964. Bureau spies were elected to top leadership posts in at least half of all Klan units. Needless to say, the informant gained positions of organizational trust on the basis of promoting the Klan's fascist agenda. Incitement to violence and participation in terrorist acts would only confirm the infiltrators' loyalty and commitment. And now, where does this lead us? The FBI has come out and said they've issued a report. They're telling friends and family to avoid 4th of July celebrations. What does that all mean? That's interesting. And then I want to go back to a 2012 article from the New York Times, Terrorist Plots Hatched by the FBI. I've got a 1-minute clip here detailing some recent FBI shenanigans going on, and it ends with a clip from Judge Napolitano talking about this very same thing. Here it is. You've probably heard of the shooting at the Prophet Muhammad Cartoons exhibition in Garland, Texas over the weekend. But did you know Daily Mail used pictures from the event, but bowing to political correctness blacked out the offensive images? And thus far, President Barack Obama has been silent about the attacks. And CNN used the event to attack the Second Amendment when it was the Second Amendment that stopped the gunman in their tracks. But now we've learned that the FBI has been watching one of the suspects using an FBI informant. Elton Simpson, the man identified as one of the 2 gunmen killed, was under surveillance by the FBI and subject of a terror investigation. The FBI has arranged numerous fake terror plots, including the Washington Metro bombing plot, the New York subway plot, the plan to blow up the Sears Tower in Chicago, the plot to bomb the Portland Christmas tree lighting, and others. In 2014, Human Rights Watch released a report stating nearly all high-profile domestic terrorism plots in the United States after 9/11 included the direct involvement of government agents and informants. You can read about all these stories at Infowars.com. Rob Dew reporting for PrisonPlanet.tv.
Can the federal government take credit for saving us from a plot of its own creation? The FBI has foiled about 17 plots to kill Americans during the past 10 years. They all have a common and reprehensible thread. They were planned, plotted, controlled, and carried out by the federal government itself. In all of these 17 cases, from the Fort Dix 6 to the Lackawanna 7 to the Portland parade bomber, the feds found young men of Muslim backgrounds, loners who were bitter at America. They befriended them, cajoled them, and persuaded them that they could change the world by killing Americans. But none of this keeps us safe. All of this makes us less free, as any one of us can be entrapped. And we are fools if we praise the government for exposing a plot of its own creation and saving us from a danger that never existed.
And one final clip that shows how the FBI likes to instigate this whole atmosphere of terror everywhere comes from the documentary The Newburgh Sting, and this is Agent Fuentes, and he's going to tell you about how he has to keep the fear alive in all you out there.
If you're submitting budget proposals for a law enforcement agency, for an intelligence agency, you're not going to submit the proposal that we won the war on terror and everything's great, because the first thing's going to happen is your budget's going to be cut in half. You know, it's my opposite of Jesse Jackson's keep hope alive. This is keep fear alive. Keep it alive.
And so this was, you know, just out of the church committee hearings that the FBI was working with the KKK to cause violence. And we're going to get more into that later, but I want to get more into maybe what caused this fire now. I'm joined by Leanne McAdoo, Joe Biggs, retired Staff Sergeant of the U.S. Army. Joe, there have been some developments now with this latest church burning. What seems to have caused the fire at this point?
Well, at this point in time, we know that lightning was more than likely the cause of this, that arson was not involved.
Wait, that doesn't fit the racist narrative. How can it be lightning?
Well, it's racist because it's white lightning.
Oh, okay.
That's why.
Yeah, and so that just came out of CNN.
So we're going to have to stop that. We need to ban that as well.
And, you know, the FBI has been working with the National Weather Service to determine whether heavy storms in the area contributed to the fire. So, unfortunately, it doesn't look like people are going to get their wish that it was racist white people that caused the latest fire. And, in fact, I showed you earlier that the people on Twitter were going crazy saying, you know, any church that burns anywhere, it must be white people.
Yeah, I actually found a cool tweet on Twitter. So as you can see, a lot of people are just regurgitating what they see on the mainstream media. This guy says, stop the passive language. Fires aren't breaking out at black churches. Black churches are being set on fire. And then you got this guy down here saying, laugh out loud, arrest the racist lightning. You know, people just turn on the TV and this is where the fear mongering is coming in.
Well, that and the social media, it's just, we're just going to keep
they just
regurgitate.
No one actually goes and looks into these things. They turn on the TV, they regurgitate it, and just throw out whatever they heard, whatever talking point on something.
If it was arson, the FBI would be saying it was arson. They wouldn't be covering for the racist lightning. They would actually be saying, no, we think somebody burnt this church down, then there'd be an investigation. Now in Colorado, we just had a guy arrested for putting up, I guess, anti-black flyers.
And he was a black guy as well.
He was a black man.
Right, there were these racist messages that were discovered at these predominantly black churches, and it turns out it was a black suspect. Still no idea why he decided to go ahead and do that, but it's about provocateuring and getting everyone riled up.
Right, and that's Vincent Broughton, 44, who's black, facing charges for committed a bias-motivated crime and disorderly conduct. And black suspect arrested after racist message discovered outside predominantly black church. So this is not, you know, you can't blame everything on white people.
Right, or you can't automatically jump to the easiest conclusion that, oh, if a church is set on fire, then it must be someone in the KKK. I mean, because here you have proof that a black suspect was actually inciting these messages, even saying that it was like, hey, black men, you're a target by the KKK, so that people would automatically think that it was put there by these white supremacist groups.
But this has all led to what TV Land is now doing. They've pulled the Dukes of Hazzard episodes amid Confederate flag uproar. So the Confederate
knew that was
flag
going to happen.
burning down churches. They've been talking about it. They actually interviewed Cooter, I think, one of the cops from the Dukes of Hazzard, who is vehemently against banning the flag. He says it's about heritage and it's not about slavery. And it was a battle flag. It's what they flew when they went into battle. And by taking that away, you're disrespecting the people who fought in the Civil War. And they called it a Civil War for a reason. It was supposed to be, it was brother against brother. And it wasn't all about slavery. In fact, the slaves didn't get released till the very end of the Civil War. And that was like Lincoln's last maneuver. He didn't come out saying we're going to ban slavery in the beginning, even though there's a lot of people against it. There's a lot of people fighting to end slavery, and it would have ended, I think, anyway.
Right.
Had the Civil War.
Well, they banned
They
banned slavery in the South, but slavery still existed for 2 more years in the North. That's what people forget.
Yeah. And where else has this gone? Now you have Daytona, the 500. They're not going to ban the Confederate flag, but they'll offer a flag exchange.
Yeah.
They didn't mention if it would be an ISIS flag or an American flag that they'd give you, but they're going to offer a flag in exchange. And I think it's funny that Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Jeff Gordon both expressed last weekend their disapproval of the flag. These are guys who, have made their living driving their cars in the South in that, strictly Confederate flag heritage area going.
It'll be interesting if Walmart's one of the sponsors for NASCAR, so maybe they will hand out some ISIS flags instead.
You never know, because they were making ISIS cakes. But let's look at some things that were built by slaves and that maybe, we should tear down. If we're going to tear down everything that slaves have ever done and built or anything like that, the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol is built by slaves.
The White House.
The
White House is built by slaves.
Pyramids.
Most of our clothes are slave.
Most of our clothes are made in
labor.
slave factories. All our iPads and iPhones are built in slave factories with suicide nets around them. But that's okay, because
Ban
liberals
iPhones.
like those. They like, the trendy iPhones.
Well, I'm
trendy
offended
iPads.
by Ready for Hillary stickers. I think we should take those down and replace those with Infowars stickers.
There you go. Because
Agreed.
anything that doesn't make us feel good, we should automatically ban. Although, Joe, you were talking about the pyramids. Oh, they say back in 2010, Egypt, new find shows slaves didn't build the pyramids. Do you believe that?
Yeah, they got like 20,000 people to just volunteer, like, hey, man, we're going to do this for free. We're going to let you whip us. We're not going to have any food or water. And we're just going to carry these really big stones on our back because we
every
like you
day
guys.
until you die.
They're claiming because they found a tomb that had, some people in it that they think built the pyramids. There's a hierarchy structure in a pyramid. The slaves are at the bottom.
Right.
And there's middlemen. And then you have the pharaohs at the top and the royalty.
Well, it's just like
highly doubt it.
How they call the Irish slaves, like indentured servants.
Exactly.
So it's just a fancier.
They worked really hard, but they got paid, sort of. They got food and water, but no, they weren't slaves. Let's tear down the pyramids in South America because those were built by slaves.
Well, and don't forget, the TPP, Obama actually rewrote a provision in it so that they could still have slave labor included in these trade deals with countries that are still actively participating in slave labor and sex trafficking. And,
right. And it's not the United States.
Africa,
Although we do buy
Asia.
these slave labor goods, and now we're going to be importing them more.
Well, I don't know. Walmart sort of pays slave wages, and they sort of set the precedent for the minimum wage. So
They have. They go in, they undercut the competition, so the competition goes away, those high paying jobs there, and then it's flooded with this low wage, and then they raise the prices back up, so they make more money, but they don't pay their workers.
And the taxpayers subsidize the low wages at Walmart.
And they probably give them property tax breaks because they go, oh, we're supplying them jobs. So that, that
we should ban Walmart.
We should get fancy tombs.
Everything should be banned at this point. But, finishing up here, we got a couple minutes left. The FBI is going around telling friends and family to avoid 4th of July celebrations. We've got an FBI official earlier this year came out and said that they have to keep the fear alive to justify their terror budget. And back in 2012, the New York Times posted terror plots hatched by the FBI. So I did a report on this morning. If the FBI is out there telling us to watch out, and they're associated with the Klan and violence back in the 60s leading up to the 90s, there were still these connections going. Is the FBI going to be perpetrating terror plots and to blame it on racist white people?
But then last week, the articles that came out were Islamists not what to be worried about. It's more of white people in America. They're the #1 terror threat.
Right.
So this all plays into that leading up to this weekend.
Right. And don't forget, the FBI released their map with where they're going to be set up, actively watching out for terror. And now ISIS has also released that same map to say, this is where we're going to target.
Well, I'm going to have my
convenient.
Mossberg strapped on my back riding around. So if ISIS wants to come out and play, come on and take it, buddy.
That's right. And hey, we're going to be back with more. I've got the person who started the SB 277 recalls. It's a real solution that you can get involved in and help change that, especially if you live in California. And I'm also going to have a drone here in the studio. And we're going to talk a little bit about private versus government drones. So stay tuned for that. It's the Infowars Nightly News. I'm your host, Rob Dew.
Brain Force is here. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of Brain Force.
One of the worst things with most energy products is it's not sustainable, right? You're gonna crash afterwards. And the cool thing about this is it's not just a bunch of energy compounds that are gonna fire your brain up to a higher RPM or whatever, which it does do. This is sustainable. This isn't going to spike and you're gonna collapse and you're gonna feel really bad afterwards. This has a bunch of different antioxidants and compounds and polyphenols.
Everybody's on these drugs to knock their brain out because the brain's so fried.
We kept changing this formula over and over and over again until it became sort of a grand puzzle. For example, the L-theanine inside of it, that is activated by the different compounds in the yerba mate that we put inside of it as well. This just increases the compounds you already have.
This is what you're actually designed to run on.
Exactly.
It's kind of like a car will run on one form of junkie gas, but it runs really good on what it's designed for.
And that's the principle of Infowars Life, as far as I understand, that you've always had, is that it's not about synthetic chemicals and forcing actions. It's about letting your body do its own thing and giving your body the tools it needs to create these different compounds that are super valuable and super beneficial. We've all been dumbed down, whether we know it or not. There's always hidden additives in your food. Even organic food has hidden additives. I mean, we're looking at the television screen, at least, you know, for research purposes, whatever we've been doing, trying to learn something, or staring at the computer all day, working, doing good, you're still damaging your brain.
You will find Brain Force, Survival Shield X2, and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.